Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're ripping into a source that gives us this really fascinating inside look at operational philosophy during a super intense moment.
We're focused on an address from Tokyo, January 22nd, 1975.
Right, and it's delivered to this group called the International One World Crusade, the IOWC team.
Exactly. And that date, that place, they're absolutely key. We're looking at the organizational DNA of this huge religious and social movement, really at peak intensity.
In the IOWC, just for context, they were sort of the rapid deployment force.
Pretty much, yeah. Their global evangelism task force, they weren't there for, a nice conference. This was planned as an 80-day blitz.
A blitz aimed at achieving what the source calls recreation. That sounds big.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And we're talking more than just, spiritual renewal here.
Right. It seems to be about physically restructuring society, starting with family culture.
Precisely. And the urgency is palpable right from the start. I mean, just listen to the activity leading up to this meeting.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, so the speaker mentions they just matched, I think it was over 700 couples in Korea.
700, okay.
And then literally the day before this speech, right there in Japan, they matched 900 most ideal couples.
Wow. That's almost 1,600 couples in just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Right.
All feeding into this plan for the largest mass wedding in history, set for early February.
The logistics alone sound incredible.
It wasn't just momentum, you see. It was like organizational speed itself was being used as a kind of theological statement.
So this deep dive isn't just about what they did, but the mindset, right? The extreme mindset needed to keep that pace and push for this global interracial unity idea.
Exactly. That mindset becomes the absolute core asset.
Okay, let's unpack the immediate goals then. Geographically, where was the focus?
The IRWC was first tasked with creating what the speaker called a heavenly boom, specifically in 3 key Eastern countries.
Which were?
Japan, Korea, and Free China. So definitely an initial Asian mandate.
But was Asia receptive at this point?
Well, that's what's interesting. The address openly acknowledges that, especially in Korea, people had been rather cool towards the Unification Church. Some even actively against it.
So they knew they were walking into resistance.
Oh, absolutely. They weren't naive about that.
So how did they expect to create a boom then, especially in Korea?
Their big bet was on that physical event, the International Blessed Wedding Ceremony. The sheer scale of it.
They thought the spectacle would win people over.
The expectation, was that this massive wedding would generate so much excitement it could literally flip national sentiment, create this unprecedented boom almost overnight.
That strategy seems to fit with a larger idea mentioned in the source. Something about a shift in dispensations.
Yes, exactly. A really major ideological timeline they were working with. The movement believed the next 3 years, starting right then in 75, marked a transition.
A transition from what to what?
From the spiritual dispensation to the physical dispensation.
Okay, what does that mean in practice? Like for these IOWC members on the ground, moving from prayer to building things.
Fundamentally, yes. The spiritual relies on, internal faith, prayer, conviction. The physical means visible, tangible manifestation.
So mass events, organizational structures.
Right. Undeniable logistics like these weddings, mobilizing huge numbers of people, expansion, moving from proving faith in your heart to demonstrating success out there in the world.
And for that big shift, Japan was crucial.
Absolutely paramount. It's explicitly called the springboard.
The springboard for everything else.
Yeah, the launch pad for higher and greater goals. So the success of this specific 80-day Japan mission wasn't just local. It was the foundation for everything planned globally after that.
So failure wasn't really an option.
Failure in Japan meant that whole physical dispensation phase, it couldn't properly kick off. The stakes felt immediate and, frankly, planetary.
Which brings us to the core challenge, because this wasn't just about logistics, was it? It was an ideological test.
A huge one. The central task laid out, especially for the Western members, was proving that the unification ideology is no different wherever we may go in the East or West.
And Japan was the perfect, maybe the hardest place to prove that.
Exactly. Designated the ideal meeting ground because it forced this intense collision of cultures. The address is very clear. Members had to overcome really specific practical difficulties. It was a mandatory test, physical and social.
Like the language barrier. I thought the instruction there was interesting. They weren't just told to cope, but to find joy in it.
Right. Think how much more interesting and wonderful life can be with different languages. It's reframing the difficulty itself as a positive.
And the food, too.
Oh, yeah. Westerners had to, quote, develop a taste for Oriental food. Not just eat it, but learn to eat it in a more romantic way.
A romantic way? What does that even mean?
It suggests, fully embracing and finding pleasure in the cultural norm, not just tolerating it. It's deep immersion mandated.
And the living situation, no chairs, no beds in traditional settings, that required real submission.
Complete cultural submission. They couldn't be wishing they were back home. It wasn't just about physical toughness. It was about dissolving your own cultural anchors, your comfort zones.
And this ties into that required shift in perspective you mentioned.
Directly. Explicit instructions. Forget that you come from America, but act and think Japanese. Adopt God's point of view.
Abandoning your individual perspective, your national identity completely.
Totally. For the sake of the mission's unity.
And if you connect that dot, forgetting your national identity, sleeping on the floor, eating strange food, it all seems to lead towards the interracial ideal, doesn't it?
It's the logical endpoint, yes. If you can achieve that level of cultural submission for 80 days, maybe you're ready for the ultimate expression of that unity.
Which the source says is intermarriage.
Correct. The ultimate goal, stressed in the source, is that members will not only live together, we will intermarry. The belief being that God prefers marriage between different races to create the ideal family.
So proving East-West unity in Japan wasn't just about the 80 days. It was the necessary step towards that global vision of interracial family.
It was the functional prerequisite. You had to pass the Japan test first.
Okay, that level of goal requires, well, extreme dedication. Let's talk about the standard of effort demanded.
Uncompromising is the word. Success, interestingly, wasn't defined just by, say, how many people you converted immediately. It was defined by attitude and unending effort.
How did they measure that?
Through relentless daily improvement. The resolution had to be, today is going to be better than yesterday.
Quantifiable, almost.
Yeah, if you witnessed to 100 people yesterday, today you aim for 101 or maybe 110. It gave a concrete target, but it was self-driven, pushing yourself constantly.
And that connects to the no vacuum idea.
Absolutely. The core concept for maintaining this was total mobilization. Body, heart, soul, always engaged. Never a moment of vacuum, just busy, busy, busy.
What's the psychology there? Keeping people too busy to think or doubt?
That's certainly a function of it, yeah. Removing quiet moments. Remove space for critical distance, for reflection, potentially for doubt. It's a method to ensure all cognitive energy is focused purely on the organizational goal.
And the leadership modeled this extreme standard.
Definitely. The leader mentions his own standard, regretting starting a meeting at 6:30 a.m. instead of 4:30 a.m., feeling shameful when resting because, quote, God never rests.
That's a standard literally beyond human capacity.
It's an impossible ideal, constantly pushing people towards it.
But how do you maintain that intensity when facing rejection? The source warns them they'll be seen as devils by some, face scorn.
Right, they were prepared for persecution. But the organization did something clever, psychologically.
Which what?
They flipped the script on rejection. It was presented as actively beneficial, a blessing even.
How so?
The address states that every setback, every tribulation, even getting, say, 100 or 200 rejections in a single day, actually wins sympathy from God.
So the difficulty itself becomes the proof of value. The harder it is, the more God approves.
Exactly that. The suffering validates the effort. Work done under tough conditions, in a foreign land, with language barriers that was explicitly framed as more valuable than years of easier work back home.
That's a powerful motivator. Your suffering isn't failure, it's earning spiritual points.
It's a very effective theological lever. It justifies the mission and elevates the status of those enduring the hardship.
This whole framing then leads into that analogy they used, the heavenly drill.
Yes, that mechanical metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
The whole unification church is pictured as this giant drill boring through the satanic world.
And the IOWC team.
They're the sharp point of the drill. And crucially, that point must not get dull.
That language, mechanical, almost military, it suggests no room for individual weakness or slowing down.
Zero tolerance, basically.
Yeah.
And it's extended to the teams. The Japanese and Western teams were seen as two drills working together.
Controlled by.
Controlled by Father in Heaven. They had to cooperate perfectly, bore quickly towards the goal. It really visualizes this unified system where individual feelings are secondary to the machine's function.
But even within that unified machine, there were different pressures, different accountabilities,
Yeah.
right? Especially based on nationality.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Western members were pointedly reminded that the Japanese wouldn't see them as individuals,
They'd see them as
ambassadors, as a sacred altar for your nation. Their performance brought glory or shame, not just on themselves, but on their entire home country.
That's intense pressure. What about the Japanese members?
Well, they got hit with something quite specific. Double duty.
Double duty. How?
They were explicitly told they had twice as much work. They had to cover their own witnessing targets, plus the share of the international members, mainly because of the language barrier.
Wait, so in the name of unity, one group gets assigned twice the workload. How did they frame that?
As a blessing, of course.
Hmm.
Being given this extra burden made them most blessed. Although the source does admit it also put them in hot water.
Most blessed, but also in hot water. That sounds like a way to demand immense sacrifice while framing it as a privilege.
It's a very effective organizational tactic, isn't it? Demand more from the hosts, call it a blessing, and imply it's an absolute expectation of their loyalty.
And there was also this element of competition involved, based on past performance.
Yes, the bar was set high. Westerners were reminded that Japanese members had previously done exceptionally well in America, winning top prizes for witnessing and fundraising there.
Creating a sort of competitive loop.
Yes, exactly. A goodwill competition. The Westerners in Japan now had to meet or beat that standard set by the Japanese in America.
And the Japanese members in Japan.
They were tasked with beating what they themselves had achieved back in the West. It's a system engineered for constant escalating effort and results.
And the consequences if they didn't meet these immense expectations. What was the cost of failure?
Existential, basically. The address is stark. If they failed in Japan, God would conclude the Unification Church simply cannot bring about the unity of the world.
Wow. No pressure then.
Not at all.
Hmm.
And specifically for the Westerners, they were warned they will never come to the Orient again.
So this 80-day mission wasn't just a project. It was framed as the test case for the entire global vision.
Make or break. Success meant a landslide victory that could then replicate worldwide. It was essential for that whole effort to recreate Japan into a Japan of hope, setting a new tradition for Asia and the world.
They were told they were the forces of recreation.
That's the term used, yeah. Their sacrifice, their effort was fueling this transformation.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. We've got this incredible logistical ambition, this massive scale focused on Asia, especially Japan, as the breakthrough point.
Right. Achieved through things like mass weddings and just sheer organizational speed.
Married to this intense ideological focus on complete cultural submission, forgetting nationality, all for unity.
Which ultimately pointed towards interracial marriage as the ideal expression of that unity.
And all of it enforced by this demand for extreme, nonstop personal dedication, that busy, busy, busy philosophy.
Which effectively left no room for individual doubt, demanding total mobilization.
What really stands out, though, is how suffering and difficulty were reframed.
Yeah, that connection between suffering and value is central in this source. The address basically suggests every word they spoke was a declaration of new hope.
And the more persecution, the more rejection they faced.
The more valuable they became.
Yeah.
To God, to the mission. Their hardship was currency.
It really raises a fascinating question for you, the listener. If rejection and difficulty are framed not as failures, but as positive assets, as proof of value, how does that change the way we understand a mission's success? When success is defined perhaps more by the sacrifice, the pain endured, than just by the obvious external results.
Something to definitely think about.
That is certainly something to mull over. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.